Hello and welcome to this week's Digi-Tools in Accrual World episode. This week's episode has been brought to you by iPlicit. iPlicit are doing some great work at the moment in terms of looking at the role of AI in accounting firms, and they've produced a really cool white paper. So nifty, if you want to get your hands on that, then it's definitely worth a download. In the meantime, I'm going to talk to you today along with my beautiful and wonderful co-host. I'll let you decide which one is which. Ryan Piercy and John Toon. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm coming beautiful, John.
That's fine. Yeah. Especially with that wig that you were promising to wear earlier.
Yeah, no, I think it does. It brings out my eyes.
You always tease us with the wig, but then it never makes an appearance at the occasions we need it to make an appearance, like the awards.
That's because it's a merkin.
Being like that's why.
Yeah, we didn't say what wig.
Not a word you haven't said in a while, is it, John? Haven't you?
Bringing it back for 2025.
Yeah, okay. 2025. I'm so surprised that you actually managed to escape being cancelled all of this year. It's
Done my best.
Impressive. Yeah.
Clearly there's a higher threshold to achieve. That's what we're going to aim for.
No, you've been very good, I think. You've been very female empowering.
Of course. Why wouldn't that
be? It will still wind both men and women up on sexual related content, but he empowers everyone and puts them down as well. But speaking of the awards, I'm excited for next year because I think we've committed, haven't we? We're doing it again.
Yeah.
We have committed and we are ready to up the game a little bit, actually. So I think this year was really good in terms of consistency and trying to improve the judging process overall. And I think next year the intention is to grow it into something that's a little bit more of a run up at it rather than our usual
last minute,
about 2 months before everything needs to start getting into boxes and organized. But I think this year we'll have a whole year luxury we'll have.
You say wait.
Well, I think that yeah,
so if you are interested in supporting our awards event and you want to be involved in it in somehow, then please get in touch because we're obviously open to talk about that now. A little bit early.
Yeah, excited. And do we bring the controversial award back, guys? Do we bring back the ditch watcher? That's the question.
Oh, I think we should.
I didn't have any feedback that said that we shouldn't.
No, I think there was the general feedback I got was that they liked the fact it's succinct, but maybe there should be more awards, more opportunity for people to win. I do like the fact we've not got a sprawling awards night that goes on for hours. I like the fact it is to the point and people can socialise and there's a buzz. And that was the main positive feedback I think we also got from the actual in-person event. But yeah, maybe we consider adding a couple. I'm not sure we'll bring back Ditch Watcher. I love the fact we hold people to account, but I did feel that maybe at least the name of it was a bit too assertive for what we were trying to do.
What do you think?
Maybe we should just go for the shit feature of the year award or something like that.
But with a star where the eye is, because we're swearing.
Oh, John.
Yeah, we could do.
Anyway, that to say, the awards are on track for next year, so that's the good news. And we've also hopefully got a few other events that we will bring to the community. A bit more fun, a bit more jovial, and just getting together with people ahead of some of the events next year. And also, John?
And also, we've got a little bit from Employment Hero, probably the number one payroll HR software on the market, all over the place. And they've not been without a little bit of controversy in the past, which we've addressed on the podcast, but they're still here in the market. They're still doing exciting and interesting things. And we'll have a quick update from them, of course, as well.
And we are excited to be joined by Unleashed on this episode, who are been, I guess, the stable inventory platform that's been supporting the cloud finance systems for, I don't know, maybe a decade now. Feels like they've been around for forever, but they've been doing, I guess, what's needed where those finance systems do not have the functionality, and then growing and building out. And I'm excited to hear what they're doing now. Yeah, we're going to have a good conversation with them next. So we're here today with the product director of the small business unit, small business software company at Access. And we're talking about the evolution of evolution. But the first question I've got for you, Ben, is what is in the small business company or software unit?
Sure. So
right.
look, no, that was pretty good. Pretty good. 9 out of 10. Yeah, it's a software company that's part of Access Group. Access Group is probably the largest company that some of your listeners will not have heard of, behind lots of systems. I work specifically in the small business part, and we look after a bunch of product lines that you may or may not have heard of. So we have obviously Unleashed, which is pretty well-known inventory management software. We've got Mintsoft, which is great warehouse management software. We have Prospect, which is a CRM specifically for that kind of manufacturing production space. And then we also got Traderify, which is a great end-to-end job management for tradies, basically. So that's my little part of Access.
Little part sounds very large, like systems that we know have been independent and run by teams in the past, and you're now heading up all that from a tech perspective. So yeah, I mean, that sounds quite a big scope. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're going to talk about the speed of evolution, how things are evolving incredibly quickly now, especially with AI having its impact. It'd be great to get your take on what this means. How are things like just growing in and evolving so quickly nowadays, and the impact that has on product development?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess a lot of your listeners are probably sick to death with hearing about AI and what it is and what it isn't. But from my perspective, simply the way it's transformed the way we work. You can, and I don't say that lightly. In the specific examples, the way we are building products, the way that we are testing products, the way that we are understanding what customer wants has changed massively. I'd say even in the last 6 months, actually, and the speed at which we can get things to market is a lot quicker. So I was actually at a customer event just yesterday, and I was demoing my ability to create new interfaces in real time with customers. So a problem we have is, I don't know if your listeners can relate, is that often we hear requirements, we get ideas from customers, but then by the time we've got back to the office or we're trying to implement them, they might have changed or we're not sure. Or actually, we can now do prototyping with customers on site, and that which we never did before, and change in real time. That's just one example, but generally, yeah, the pace of the way we work and the momentum that we get has gone up massively.
That's crazy. Just be able to build on the fly when out with customers, depending on the requirements. That's something I couldn't even imagine. So yeah, I think that the challenge then must be about picking the right products or the right developments to do, because otherwise you just do everything and it's just going to get chaotic and nothing would interact and work in a cohesive way. So surely it's decision making that's the biggest pain point now.
Ryan, you should work in product, because I would argue that's exactly that. That's why we still need people to make the right decisions. I would say you're probably, look, I don't have a crystal ball here, but if I was betting man, I would say that the answer somewhere lies in between. I actually think you will be able to accommodate more customer orientated solutions because the cost to develop them and maintain them is so much lower. So I do expect us to have more variants of products, more bespoke featuring. But yes, you can't get it too out of whack, because suddenly you've got lots of different variants. It becomes unsupportable. So I think it's a fine balancing act. I think what we would like to see, though, is the ability to prototype one thing for one customer and then make sure that other people have that same need, so that we're not actually just creating bespoke solutions. But yeah, honestly, again, I was probably a bit cynical when I started working with a lot of the AI tooling at Access, and it's just blown me away. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, and look, we definitely shared it on our podcast, because the amount of things that we can talk about and the speed that we're seeing tech companies now release features has definitely accelerated, as you say, over the last 6 months, probably to a year. And are you finding that it's, because you're covering quite a few products here, and it's making sure that they're not overlapping too much, because you don't want them competing, because you've got a big group here.
Yeah, but I think that's where we would talk. So we would talk about ideal customer profiles, ICPs. I could product geek out on you if you want, Ryan. But essentially, we try and identify specific segments for our products. And as long as we aim for that segment and deliver against it and make sure the others don't, we'll be absolutely fine. And I think that's something we're managing to do at the moment. And you know what? This is where AI can also help there as well. So we're putting a lot of our strategy thinking through AI and asking it to critique it and play it back to us. So it's not just about coding. It's not just about building things faster. It's using AI to make sure we're building the right things as well. Prioritization frameworks, it eats that stuff for breakfast. It's fantastic.
Yeah, okay. So give us a tangible example then, because I know we can all talk about theory of AI, and we do that a lot on the show. But give us an example of how, I guess, you or one of your team, or multiple people in your team, have used AI to release something or evolve something really quickly.
Which example shall I pick from? I would pick the work we're doing around integrations, because I'm trying to think of something that your audience can relate to. What we find in our space, small business, it's all about what works with other things. It's super important that you work with those key accounting packages like Xero and QuickBooks. It's really important that you work with other vendors. I'm thinking in the distribution side of things, the courier side of things. And currently today, integrations can be rather challenging for us. Our products, between all the products, I probably have just over 500 integrations at the moment with different entities. Managing them is hard, and they change often on the fly, and we don't know about it. So we decided to use AI to reimagine. It's a big word, but it really was the case, to reimagine how we do integrations. And we actually fed in specifications to an LLM to build the integration. And now we've got 2 running at the moment that are running agentically. So that means that if anything happens on those integrations, it fixes itself. It actually I feel like I'm talking about the future, but it actually does fix itself and heal itself, which is incredible. And we never had that before. So there's a working example of giving an AI a focused task specifically around maintaining integrations and watching it go. And it's been fantastic. So I think that's one. I think there's loads, Ryan, but I think the way that we're using it now for those kind of tasks is absolutely key.
I think that's an amazing example. And the reason is because we get so frustrated about seeing poor quality integrations out there, where someone say it integrates, but it's actually just an export file, or you're pushing one bit of information in one direction. That's not a proper integration. And the fact that you've got something where you can say to an AI agent, I want to integrate in this tool. This is what the data I want to share. Design and define what that looks like. And then also, if anything changes that's preventing that happening, restructure it to make sure that you're still adhering to the objective that we want.
Within the parameters that we've set. Yeah, exactly. And I'm really glad you talked about integrations as well. So prior to my role at Access, I worked in trading at a large company called IG. And it's interesting there that, trading, very exciting. We could do lots of really interesting things to our customers, change the front end. But if we didn't reconcile their accounts properly or pay them the right money, then we'd lost that customer. It's the basics. And I think that, and sure, we all want great interfaces and beautiful journeys, but actually our customers love is things that work. So it's integrations, it's making sure you get paid on time. It's those necessarily the boring things. And that's what we've chosen to focus on initially. And so far it's paying off.
Yeah, and I think that's really critical for where you are as a business, right? You've gone on this acquisition spree over the last few years. You've got all these great tools, and they are amazing tools, things that we've talked about very positively on the show over the number of years. And this thing of going, well, how do we make this really work effectively? All these tools were separate entities before doing their own thing. How do we make them really cohesive? And integrations, not only is this external, but I assume internal as well.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I don't know how much you and your listeners know about Access, but what you're talking about there is very much the next part of our evolution. So I've been with the company 8 months now, but as I understand it, Ryan, Access was very acquisition heavy, and those entities were pretty much left alone by and large. Now they put some really great supercharging around that, some of the sales, the marketing entities, but a lot of the companies themselves were left in their isolated silos. Now, actually, the strategy is bringing those things together. So you'll even see, and this is no secret, you'll even see a lot of those products actually start to look and feel the same as we evolve to an Access Evo design system. So yeah, that's absolutely the plan. So if you're on any Access products at the moment, you will in time notice that they will start to converge. And what you should be getting is an experience where you buy one Access product, it should automatically work with the other ones. That's absolutely should be a given.
Well, it sounds like something we could just dive into in a whole different session, but unfortunately, this brings us to the close. But before we do that, I understand that you are running a webinar soon about diving into this in the detail and how it's working. When's that?
Yeah, we've actually put together a special webinar for partners. So understanding what they need to help their customers really, and how we can help you, this big brand and all these different products that we've got. And it's going to be on the 17th of November at 9 p.m. And that'll be product people. It's not a sales event. That's product people simply talking about our products and how they could help your customers to our partners. So yeah, I think, is this where I say it's going to be below, Ryan? Is that?
Well, it'll be in the show notes.
It'll be in
if
the
you do
show
want to sign up
notes.
to
There
it.
you go.
And the main thing to also be aware of is that if you sign up, you don't have to necessarily stay up till 9 p.m. I know we have a lot of early bedtimes nowadays. You will get the recording, so make sure you do sign up if you're interested. Thanks, Ben, for coming on, and I'm sure we'll catch up again with you soon.
Thanks.
So it's app news time. And this week, a major AWS outage sent shockwaves through the SaaS world, hitting platforms like Xero and Pleo, and locking thousands of users out of their financial systems for hours on end. I know that everyone had a complete meltdown over this, especially over Twitter, which I know I'm so old school, but I'm still on Twitter. I haven't cancelled X. But Amazon said that their services were back to normal, and the incident exposed a hard truth to most of the world, which is we've become dangerously dependent on a handful of cloud providers, which was something that Elon himself probably drew a lot of joy out of, because he was happy to point out that most of the apps that are out there are probably sharing data still in some way with AWS, even apps like Signal, which hopefully isn't true, because obviously it's just a cloud software provider. But for accountants, it's not just inconvenient, it's probably existential. And I think in the sense that when your bookkeeping, client records, and all the reporting tools live in one cloud, and suddenly that freezes and the whole firm grinds to a halt, it's like the virtual equivalent of a snow day. So I don't know if that's a bad. I'm sorry to say that. The irony, these outages are happening more often as AI drives up computing demand, which is contributing to the kind of sucking of bandwidth, storage, and connectivity from the same servers that run all of the accounting softwares. And so I guess to you and to you both, actually, Ryan, John, have we built a single point of failure into modern firms where firms have traded control for convenience, swapping the in-house systems that everyone's bashed, in particular me, with the what's local and Walter's Kluwer's style, for cloud speed, but without a contingency if every outage risks disrupting payroll, client work, or compliance deadlines that you've got?
Well, I would say John and I are probably old enough here to know the days where we'd be working on a kind of server-based system, and then that goes down. And when it goes down, you really can't do anything. And you've got not only that as a worry, but also the concern of losing data. And I think we've now gone into, when we've been using cloud products for so long, there is a expectation that they're up 100% of the time, which is just not realistic. So if I think back in the early days when I was just a wee accountant, I remember it would probably happen 2 or 3 times a year where it would be an outage of some sort, right? It might be one system would go down, like an upgrade didn't work very well, or it could be the entire server has gone down, or access, like the broadband has gone down, and you're stuck. You have got a snow day as such in the office. You can't do anything for a while. And that does happen. But because I guess we've now moved into the cloud, we've outsourced that to the cloud providers. It's not our responsibility. We're now not moaning at the bosses. The bosses are moaning externally to the cloud providers. And I still think the level of downtime is significantly reduced to back in the old days. So I don't think we've created a single point of failure. I think we've just transitioned it. I think it still exists. It still exists back in the past. We've just moved it. We've outsourced it.
And so, John, what do you think? Is it time so that firms also need to think about what their resilience strategy is? So going back to local backups, secondary providers, offline plans.
Yeah, my initial thoughts was when Ryan was a wee accountant, I wonder if he spent a lot of time counting urinals. But anyway, I think we do have to have a conversation about resilience for sure. We are heavily reliant on cloud providers to provide the services to us, more and more so. I guess still mid-tier firms are a little bit still mixed, but we do need to have a proper conversation about backups and whether or not you spread yourself across the various estates. And there isn't a lot of competition, right? You've only really got Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, really, that most businesses will want to use, that comes with a huge amount of cost, infrastructure costs, backup costs, etc., etc. If that happens, maybe we're going to have to accept the fact that maybe the price of our services may double as well. So that's something that we need to consider. But it is something that needs to be thought about. I think the one thing that really stood out to me, though, and I spotted that someone posted about this on LinkedIn as well, was that HMRC were down as a consequence of this outage. And the outage that affected AWS was around a data center in the US, not in the UK. So the UK data centers were not affected. So I think there's a real fundamental question mark about why is HMRC using a data center in the US and not using a data center in the UK, particularly when they're going to be storing an absolute ton of personal information. And I guess also maybe as buyers of software from providers, maybe we need to be more aware and more prescient of the dangers of having potentially client personal data, our own personal data, sitting on servers that are not in the UK. That is a fundamental part of GDPR, isn't it, in terms of being able to understand and control where your data is kept. There are some provisions around holding it at other places, but I think maybe that firms, particularly smaller firms, don't scrutinize this in any way, shape, or form.
It is. I don't think there is an easy answer. And as you say, John, I think there's cost considerations. So do I think people will react to this? Probably not. I think if it happened more frequently, there'd probably be a pressing need for it. But actually the downtime that existed and the impact it had on businesses was not substantial enough, at least in the accounting sector, to cause a change. But was this the most controversial thing that's been going on online recently? I dispute that, because we've had a big Xero versus QuickBooks online debate about bank recs going through LinkedIn. And you've got the very strong opinions of those that are on the Xero camp and the QuickBooks camp. One saying that Xero doesn't do bank recs. The other saying, well, actually, you're just thinking of it in an old way, and Xero does do bank recs. You're just trying to do it traditionally. And I think it's come down to, what is a bank reconciliation? Is it something you can do in real time and matches like exactly to it? Or is it the allocation of transactions? Or is it just we stop at a period close and we check that everything's correct? And I think it comes down to semantics in some way. But surely we should be getting into a modern way where in real time AI can verify the bank balance, and we shouldn't need to worry about that. And I think that's what's come out of it, is that Xero have released a new feature where you can auto allocate transactions. You no longer need to click the OK button. It will be coming in later in this year, I believe, or early in 2026, where it will do that for you and you can review and change it, which I class as auto reconciliation. And QuickBooks have released a feature where you can put in a bank statement and it will auto check, have you got all the transactions in there? Completely two different things, both automating reconciliation with AI to some extent. And I love the fire that's been and the passion that's been on social media with people in very specific camps on what is bank reconciliation. Like, have you got an opinion on what bank reconciliation is?
I know what traditional bank reconciliation is and looks like, because I'm old enough to remember when I had to do them manually as part of my studies, and also before like things like the big cloud accounting products came along. I just think people need to get a life. The whole premise of having technology is to speed up the processing of transactions, and what we ultimately want to have is some comfort that that process is reliable. We have that in the UK because we're fortunate enough to have bank feeds from most of the major banks into pretty much all of our accounting software that's available to us. And yes, there are glitches with that and there are challenges with that, but quite often those are really easy to pick up and identify and to fix as well, because of the tools like things like Final Recode or the equivalent in various products. I just wonder why this debate goes on. I know that the Americans get really hung up about this, but fuck them.
You're very aggressive today, John. I'm pointing this out. You're very aggressive.
Oh, that's 2 swear words in the last 15 minutes. My ears aren't ready for this, John. Too early. I'm enjoying with the popcorn. That is my perspective. That's all I'm doing. I'm watching you all, and I'm thinking, yeah, get hungry. It's Jerry Springer for me. It's like, yeah, no, like voyeuristic. It's very interesting to see the different ways that is being represented. I saw one of the videos this morning. If I watched that, I would 100% be charging and choosing QuickBooks right now, because it's like, okay, this looks very clever, simple to use. But I think that Ryan, we need to hear your perspective next, because you've obviously had an original perspective on this, and we need another one from you, Ryan.
You don't. I'll try not to swear, but essentially I feel that the weakness of this comes down to problems still with open banking, which is a frustration for any software vendor, in that we can get transactions, but we can't get a statement like balance through that. It's nuts that we can't just verify a statement balance through the open banking platform. And it shouldn't be that challenging to bring in and to force banks to bring in. Now, some of the modern banks, you don't need to worry about this. So where this really comes from is where you've got a traditional bank that has not invested properly into their architecture, and therefore it's causing problems for your processing. And when I talk to clients about a lot of this, I go, look, what is the relationship with your bank? Because I can tell you're going to have some challenges with your bank feeds. Unless you've got some debt relationship where you're tied in with them, you really need to be looking at what you get from them on an ongoing basis. If it's hampering your day-to-day processing and adding on time for your team, you need to consider transitioning your bank. Even if you still stay with your current bank for an account, but you move your operations into another bank account that's modern, streamlined, automated, and doesn't have bank feed issues, then do that. I use Xero. I've got a bank feed. I have never had an experience where there's a transaction omitted or duplicated. I use a modern bank. This is not a debate about what a system should do and what bank reconciliation is. In my opinion, this is a discussion about what bank you're on. Use a modern bank, you don't have a problem. Stop talking about what system you should use. You don't have a problem if you use a modern bank with a good bank.
I completely agree with you. And I have very rarely experienced problems with the bank feed for as long as I've been around. Yeah, yes, occasionally there's been a glitch where maybe some transactions from a day haven't been updated, or maybe a duplication here or there. But these horror stories I hear of people having like major problems with bank fees, I have just never experienced. And that's across hundreds, if not thousands of clients. That's across many years of looking at this. And again, like I say, I know this is a debate in America, but why is it a debate in America? Because the technology doesn't work, because they don't have bank feeds. And so they're still screen scraping and using unreliable technology. You're exactly right, Ryan. This isn't a problem around what does a bank reconciliation look like. It's a technology problem that needs to be fundamentally addressed. The idea of being able to just get hold of a bank balance amount through open banking, that is available, has been available from day one. It's just that it's not served up in the accounting system. So it's served up in other systems. So you can go to Circuit, you can go to a few other open banking providers, and they will give you that information if you want to be able to verify it. But maybe that's the option. Maybe there's just a push of a button that says, what's the balance? What was the balance yesterday on my HSBC bank account? And it'll tell you whatever.
If that's possible, this is stupid. It is absolutely stupid debate. And I'm calling out Xero, QuickBooks Online, Sage, Free Agent, pretty much any of the finance system platforms. Bring that button in. If you can do it, and tell us if you can't do it. We'd love to talk about that on the show. But if not, bring it in. It should be really simple and solves the entire problem. So if you're listening, make it happen.
It's a problem that Analytics fix. They do that. They do exactly that, all right? And they've been doing it for years. So it's available. It's easy to do. It just needs to be addressed. Moving on.
Speaking of modern banks, then, John.
Yeah, of course. Monzo announced that they have released an MTD tool that's bolted onto their products. This is not unusual. We've seen quite a few of these. And of course, we talked fairly recently on the podcast about Starling acquiring a supplier in this market who are white labeling their services to some of their major high street banks. But Monzo have, I guess, sidestepped that acquisition challenge, if it was a challenge for them, and I've partnered up with Sage to offer MTD filing for through their platform. This is like the Ron Seal of implementations, right? It's there for sole traders and landlords. You'll be able to file direct from your Monzo business account. You'll be able to see and keep track of your tax and everything else. That's all good, and it's what you would expect. What I'm not sure about, because it's just not available in the detail and I haven't seen the product yet because there's a wait list for it. It's not clear whether this will address some of the challenges for landlords where you've got, say, partial ownership challenges, for example, or where you've got, say, a mixed amount of rental income and then other your business income that has to be accounted for separately. So there may be some nuance in this that we're not quite clear about, but yeah, we're going to just see more and more of this in the run up to MTD for it. So over the next sort of 5-6 months or so. So expect more of this. It'll be really interesting if we can do a breakdown on what the full functionality of some of these products looks like, because clearly Sage have that full functionality, but it's not clear whether it's going to be available in this Monzo partnership.
Great plan, John. I think we should schedule something in maybe January, February time, since we're about to hit MTD for income tax.
Hope you're all ready. In other news, a big move in payroll tech this week. Irish Software Group has teamed up with Telleroo to bring faster payments directly into payroll processing. It's a huge upgrade for firms and finance teams that are still stuck on the old 3-day back cycle. And what it means is instead of sweating submission deadlines or scrambling to correct last-minute changes, payroll teams now get an extra 2 days to process and approve payments. 2 days. And when they hit go, the money lands almost instantly. So that flexibility and efficiency and cash flow management is all in one place. I think the partnership really doubles down on security. So there's some things around real-time error alerts, mobile approvals through the Telleroo app, and safeguards that flag suspicious changes in payee details before they become a problem. In short, Iris has, and I always think of this, I could take a deep breath, Iris has modernized one of the most painful admin jobs in finance, which is not, we don't say that very often. And Telleroo continues to prove why it's the quiet powerhouse of payment automation. Those guys are really smart, fast, and they've built something that matches the realities of how businesses actually run today. So payroll just got faster, safer, and a lot less stressful thanks to Telleroo, who've put themselves right at the center of it. So well done, Telleroo, and good job, Iris.
Yeah, no, I love the fact Telleroo are integrating into more platforms. Is a great payment tool and one that works, I think, for accountants using it on behalf of with their clients rather than clients using it directly. But speaking of Telleroo, I've got something from one of their competitors, Modulr. They have now released confirmation of Payee for batch payments. So they were able to do this on an individual payment by payment process. You can now do this across a large number of suppliers if you're doing a big batch payment run. How big, you ask? What about 10,000 payments at one go? That is an insane volume. Who is creating a batch payment run of 10,000 supplier payments? I think that surprising that they've allowed this, but maybe that's because their platform has incredible scalability. And if you're not sure, I guess what that's going to do, how that's going to help, is going to pick up any times you've mistyped, I guess, account information in, but it's also going to pick up where you've received invoices that are fraudulent and asking you to pay a different vendor. If you are not using a modern payment system with confirmation of Payee built in, you are creating a huge fraud risk inside your business. When in my audit days, the chances, I guess, of fraud inside the business all came about from essentially paying the wrong supplier, mostly on a purposeful basis. So confirmation Payee should be brought in and should be mandated with segregation of duties. Please pick up a tool, whether it's Telleroo, whether it's Modulr or another one. I think it's something you should be looking at.
I guess that scale thing for Modulr maybe is a reflection of where they're positioned in the market, right? Because they do tend to work with very large businesses. So maybe it's not that unusual. 10,000 still feels like a lot, but
10,000, mate.
There's a lot of payments. Maybe they pay every invoice individually. Maybe that's what they're doing.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. It's batch payments, right? So it's consolidating it down. So in my opinion, that's 10,000 suppliers, which is, yeah, you can kind of NetSuite level.
It is, yeah.
And another one that I've got, which is Pleo, who just took a step forward with Pleo Embedded, a new way for other platforms, whether it's HR, accounting softwares, etc., to plug in Pleo spend management tools directly into their system. The old embedded finance play. I guess for accountants, this matters for one simple reason. It is there to finally, or at least that's the pitch, finally eliminate the messy, disconnected workflow between company spending, expenses, and reconciliation. With Pleo Embedded, the same smart cards and automated expense rules that we already know exist from Pleo can now live inside the software your clients use. So from payroll tools to industry-specific platforms like the GLs, that means fewer CSV uploads, cleaner transaction data, and real-time visibility on cash flow across multiple clients without asking someone to log into another app, which is often, I think, what we're actually getting to is a consolidation of that tech layer where we really only want to stick within your own workflow. The idea is fairly simple: make it easier for accountants to see and manage what's happening in client businesses rather than chasing receipts or reconciling a dozen systems at the month end. It's all about reducing friction and giving the accountant the tools to automate, verify, and advise the client with some confidence, and again closing the gap on some sort of smarter spend management that is hidden in the pipes somewhere a little bit more. What do we think, guys?
Did they announce any partnerships with someone? Because I guess it's who are they targeting? Who are they going after? Would it be the likes of Xero, Sage, QuickBooks?
Yeah, it's interesting. They did not announce a partnership, but yeah, gut feel was the same as what you're saying, which is this a prime would be maybe Employment Hero or like a Xero or and another. They haven't said, but I can see some use cases for it, right? You've
Definitely.
got employees that are remotely based and you're trying to manage their expenses, or you might want to load, or you're trying to charge back for. I think that there is some sort of play there with HR software.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Payroll, like something like that.
I think from my end, it's that Pleo prided itself on a slick user interface and bringing multiple simple tools together. And the embedded finance route is more of a low cost play, making a margin. So they're pivoting slightly. But yeah, if they make it work, it really depends on who they partner with first, who comes in to use it, and whether we'll ever hear about that, or it will just be a employment hero card powered by Pleo.
True. But anyway, speaking of payments, John's got something from our Storonsky wannabe. I'm going to throw over to him for a mo.
Okay, so this is something from Apron. They have added a get paid accounts receivable tool. The way that this works is you can add links to your invoices and to what am I struggling for? Statements. Oh my God. You can add links to invoices and statements so that you can hopefully encourage your customers to pay you a little bit more promptly. And there's the ability to enhance your data capture as well as you go through the process if you're needed to do this. And of course, like everyone else, including a AI bookkeeping agent in the background to help with some of the credit control side of this. So this is all due to go live in 2026. So it's a little way off for now, but they've been teasing this with things on their blog and some other posts more recently. And the way that it works is you can see your overall debtor book, so you can see all of your outstanding invoices. You can then see how you're expecting those to be paid. So it might be by card or by bank transfer. I think there's some options to add things like direct debit and some other bits and pieces into the mix in the future. And then if you're chasing all of that up, you can make sure that you include a link in those invoices, in those notifications, so that people can obviously click through and hopefully get those settled really promptly. We know that this is an issue in terms of small business payments. Sage have done some research on this. Xero, of course, have done some research on this in the past. And the government have been talking about trying to improve the way that this works. Although I do think that small business owners are still complicit in some of this problem, if you like. So there's still a challenge there to be dealt with. But this isn't just exclusively to something that sits just in Apron, but you can also connect this into Xero, QuickBooks with their direct integrations. You can also add these click-through buttons into email, WhatsApp, on the web portal, and text message. So they've got a whole bunch of different ways that you can contact and chase your customers for payments and stuff. So that's all there. And obviously from the Apron dashboard, you can then see where that's at in terms of who's been sent what, and whether or not they've included a payment link or not, and whether they're going to pay it on time. So I think this is just another option for people. There's always a challenge, like I say, in this payment space and things like that. So that's the way it goes. There are some charges just to be aware of. It's just to be aware that there are no fees unless people pay by personal card, and then there's a 1% charge on this. And also, if your customer pays by a business card, then there is a 2.9% cost on this, which is normally charged to the customer, but you can adjust that so that it just comes out of your gross amount. Just be very aware, obviously, that you need to be very careful about this, because there are some limitations about charging on credit card recharges to non-business users. So hopefully that's very clear in the platform. I haven't looked at this, but that's probably just one thing to be aware of.
Yeah, it sounds like Apron are moving into the MIMO space,
Indeed.
covering, I guess, money in and money out. And I wonder if the likes of Dext will end up going this way, because they all seem to be competing now. And Apron, I guess, they've got a lot of overlap with Dext and Accrual Max. And yeah, it feels like one of them will react and bring something in. Anyway, I've got something from Appventory. So if you're unsure or you don't know what Appventory is, this is the tool that you can plug into your client's data. It sucks out all the information and tells them what software they're using, how frequently they're using it, what the feedback is from their users on using that software. So if you are going through a digital transformation process, or you believe your client should be going through that, this will help them understand how engaged are their team, where the pain points are, what they should be looking at, what they should be revising. And what they've essentially brought in is new onboarding methods for your clients. So you can do this via what's called a silent activation, i.e. you're bringing this in, you're connecting your client data, and you are essentially looking at it, validating it, checking it to trigger a conversation with them. Or an engaged activation, the client knows what you're doing, and then you're inviting them into the platform so they can do the assessment themselves in a collaborative way. Now, be very careful on either approach, but especially the silent activation. Make sure you've got that covered in your letters of engagement, that you are not connecting their data into platforms that they are unhappy with, or you've at least got the authorization to do that. And then you've got a self-onboarding process as well. You can send a link out to a client. They can then go through, fill in everything they need to, connect all the data up, and you don't need to do it on their behalf. And then finally, to try and make this simpler, because it's quite a powerful tool, there's a lot of information in there, they've created a one-pager PDF report, you can PDF it, that summarizes key aspects, utilization, what are the key apps, where are the biggest risks, and what is the user engagement. So it's something that if you are moving into the digital transformation space, it's probably worth exploring. If you've not come across Appventory, please do check them out, look for them either via the web browser or LinkedIn. And it's a tool that is at least worth exploring. Sometimes it will work with the processes you want to work with, sometimes it won't. But with the, I guess, different ways of onboarding your client now, it creates quite a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a cool, little update there. And did you say there's a bit of a feedback loop in there as well? Or did I mishear that? I wasn't quite sure.
Elaborate on what you mean by feedback
I mean, in
loop,
terms
John.
of the end users being able to give some feedback on the product that they're using.
No, I didn't mention that. I believe that they can anyway inside the system. I think that's been there for a while, not part of this update. But I know that Appventory is very active with its user base at the moment and trying to get as much feedback as possible. They're training the platform quite regularly. And you will, as in any system, if you're an accountant, have an account manager, always make sure you feedback. And this is on any system. So many times I work with businesses and they're just, something's broken. They just carry on doing things and ignore it. Bring the feedback in. Most systems will make a change. And I've had it, I think, 3 times in the last 2 months with Dext, where something has been fed back to me. I've told Dext, and then because they seem to have some weird ability to roll out updates in 3 weeks, they have brought the change in to everyone. If you're experiencing a pain point, feed it back. There's a likelihood nowadays in this world that they will make that change for you, unlike the traditional way where you'd have a pain point, you're stuck with it forever.
No, absolutely. Oh, I've got some feedback for Dex, by the way, because the prepayments function doesn't work on multi-currency invoices, and yet they still convert to a sterling value, and that gets posted to Xero. Can you fix that, please, Stephen?
If you're listening to this.
I've got a couple of quick updates actually from Joiin. Is it Joiin or Joiin? I can never.
It's Joiin, I think. I think it's Joiin. They just spell it. It's like Xero with an X, right?
It's so complicated. Like it's just an extra vowel in there. I don't need it. But yeah, so they've added a couple of neat little updates to their platform. And the one that really excites me, so I'll talk about that one first, is the ability to add live data to Excel with the Joiin add-in. You can now pull your Joiin data straight into your spreadsheets and then obviously do some manipulation in there. So for me, this sounds a little bit like what you can do with Giacon, which you can only use with G Suite. So for us Excel users, we've been in the dark for a little while since some of the products that were out there disappeared off the market. So I guess the way that you would maybe do this would be you connect Joiin into your accounting platform of choice, and then you can now connect that into Excel and pull that data down and do some additional manipulation. So I think this is a really cool way of being able to see the data and do something extra with that data if you want to sit in Excel. And of course, as an accountant, we're always, as a bookkeeper, we're super familiar with Excel and very comfortable with that. What I'm not sure about, and whether or not this is something that they can put on their upcoming feature list or feature request, would be the ability maybe to change that data in Excel itself and push it back the other way. That would be a really neat thing to do, because that, of course, is something you can do in Giacon. But that is...
John, I can give you the insights that they are aware of that. They'd like to do that. And this is the first step of this, because I was in a conversation with them the other day. And great minds, John, that was my feedback. That this would be brilliant, at least for budget or forecasting perspective. Do your calculations in Excel, because people love to start there and then push that back in. But the other thing I don't know, you're mid-flow, but I've interrupted you, so I'm going to carry on, is I'm thinking about the why have they got 2 eyes in there? And do you think, John, it's because they are joining the dots of the eyes? As just a thought process.
We're wasted at accounting.
Marketing, here we come.
Oh my God, can you imagine? That's very good. And then the other update that they have also added in is now you can start to track your non-financial metrics and stuff. So as we all know, P&L is probably one of the most important things that you want to look at, and cash flow as well in particular. But there are other things that will have an influence on how a business is performing, which could be anything from, say, like your headcount to production volumes to potentially, say, things like marketing campaigns and other stuff. So now you can start to bring in that non-financial data into the platform, and then you can see that side by side with your normal financial data. And you can start to, I hope, see the correlation or interpret an influence between those numbers. How that works is obviously in the past, you would have kept all of that data probably in a separate spreadsheet or do something else and make that data combine, maybe in a Power BI or something like that in the past. And now, of course, you can create dashboards which pull all of this data together. There are no extra costs to adding this in, but you do have to obviously collect that data and then put it into the platform. At the moment, it's not clear how you do that other than it has to be entered manually. But I guess at some point, it'd be really nice, considering the Excel add-in that we just talked about. Again, if you can start to collate that in your Excel spreadsheets or collect that from another system and maybe export it into Excel and have that ability to import it back into the platform, I think that'd be really neat. But this is just a start, and with the sort of the dashboarding functionality that you've got with Joiin, you can then start to see these correlations between these data sets. I think anything that gives you that kind of information, that data, is always really valuable. I know that, for example, that's a functionality that's been in Fathom for a little while, maybe not quite at the same level, but of course, it's always a bit of an arms race, these kind of things. And people are always looking to add more and more content to dashboards and reporting solutions.
Agreed. And I think historically, Joiin was always looked at as purely just a consolidation tool, very powerful in that. But I think with this release, they've really broadened now to become an all-round reporting tool. Forecasting, budgeting, maybe not their speciality yet, but something they may get to in the future. But I think that's a perfect way to wrap up app news and now lead directly into our conversation with Employment Hero. So we're back with Kevin Fitzgerald from Employment Hero. And in the prior episodes, we've talked a lot about payroll compliance, but I'm not someone that runs payroll. I'm a digital transformation specialist. I love about connecting systems and bringing data together. And something that we've talked about on the show a lot, and seems to be becoming more and more prevalent, is we've had a kind of change over the last few years where people would get little bits of software that solve little pain points and then connect together. And now we're starting to see that consolidate down, bring different functionality into a single package, because it brings, one, less touch points, but also two, more data security. And I know this is something that Employment Hero kind of has been building over the last few years. But Kevin, whenever you start engaging with your prospects, is this something they're looking for? Is this something that they just grow into? How does that discussion evolve?
Ryan, thanks for having me again. It's not something they're looking for because most of them don't realize that it actually exists. Like the ability to consolidate like everything employment. And then we say everything employment because that's the way we build like the Employment Hero platform. So you'd have everything from recruitment, ATS, onboarding, time and attendance, payroll, like typical HR offering, as well as benefits management and LMS. And I guess like SMEs have been spoiled over the last 10 years with like really great point solutions. And my view is like they made the right choices at the time to pick, say, a best in class or certainly really progressive solution for a certain part of the employment structure in their business, which could be, say, payroll, for example. And you ask like when people come to us or what do they come looking for? The majority still come looking for a modern cloud payroll system. I reckon within 15 to 30 minutes of us having a discussion with them about how they run employment in their business, and we can show them that they could have everything under one roof with Employment Hero, which means having single source of truth for the employee file, employee data in one place. They recognize that they have been on the right journey and they've picked all these great tools, but the tools that they've had and they've chosen have all gotten stronger over the years. Some of them actually start to creep into each other. You need to choose between one tool or another for the same task or same piece of workflow. But unfortunately, and probably just part of business life, like all of those businesses and vendors that they work with have all put up their prices and they end up with SaaS bloat. And it's not just the financial cost of it. It's also when somebody new joins the business and they got to learn 5 or 6 systems, right? And it's just to really do everything employment. We're seeing people come to us for modern payroll system, but then choose us because we can do pretty much everything that they need across the whole employment spectrum. So consolidation at that SME level, I'm saying it's rife. Like I'm hearing from accounting firms that are seeing probably payroll and HR come together more, but then the more digital accounting firms would say are saying, hey, yeah, we've got people looking at everything like across the whole employment spectrum, like and how you can get into one platform. And it's a massive shift. Yeah.
Yeah. And this isn't just the employment space we're seeing it in. So like expense management, that was something where you'd have something for cards, something for accounts payable, staff expenses. That's consolidating. Reporting, you'd have something for like period end, but you'd do something for cash flow forecasting. That's consolidating. We're seeing this more and more. But I think the thing that stands out for me in why it's more critical in the employment space is data security, because the most sensitive data you hold is on your employees, like from GDPR perspective. And so bringing all of that into one area that's confined, it doesn't need to move, it doesn't need to be exported, it doesn't need to be manually inputted. You've saved it somewhere, you've forgotten where you've saved it, you've now got an exposure risk. That's something you don't have to worry about. And we talked about in prior episodes about reducing worry when it comes to payroll processing. There's just also payroll data and reducing worry in that space. So that must be like a massive relief and something you obviously focus on in Employment Hero when you're talking to clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I do think a decent cohort actually don't realize that burden, right? Like from actually managing like the data. A lot of people operate in hope, right? Like that they hope it's safe and they hope they're doing all the right things. But actually, like anything that technology can bring, it's a lot of it is like bringing the right systems, tools, and processes into your business to protect you, especially with compliance software. So when we show people like how it actually all comes together and how secure it is in one space, and they start to like relay that back to their own business and how they currently operate and how somebody over here needs this like CSV download to get their job done, and they have an API to this system, but it's just not great. And they're going, am I exposed? Do I really have exposure here? And we could say, look, if it's all under one hood, that really removes the exposure. So yeah, I think there's big wins on obviously data security. And as you said, your employee information is absolutely like the most critical information that you hold on file. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is that you're never going to cover all areas, because you still have to submit information to HMRC for pension. You still have to get in your finance system and make the payments. But the beauty I've always liked with Employment Hero is you've got such a broad range of connections that you can enable that are already in the space, in very deep connections as well. Is that you've got Pension Sync for submitting that directly to many pension providers. You've got integrations into like Telleroo for doing payments, but also integrations into the finance system. So you can enter data once at an early point in an employee journey, and that flows through everything to the end part of doing a report at the end. And that's the bit that everything I focus on is that kind of single entry. Everything else should just be review and managing.
Yeah, it's that like central source of truth, right? Like you apply that same thought to cloud accounting, right? Like, and the general ledger is your central source, right? And how that has become like so powerful is because of bank feeds, right? Like you're getting yesterday's information into the system today, and it's reconciled hopefully like really quickly. And then you can actually start doing your job. Whereas with payroll information, like as soon as you hire somebody, you want to make sure that one, their information isn't written down on a form or a doc that's collected it somewhere and then that's left somewhere in the office and just ends up lying around. And like even we think about like, obviously we think about security from the first interaction with a potential employee, because we're already collecting their information. Like as soon as you interact, right? If somebody comes on to the Employment Hero jobs platform, like a job seeker, we're already collecting like a key personal information that's very secure.
Yep.
And then if they're successful in securing a role with one of our clients, it's that same information that's used for their onboarding, but it's all still the one Employment Hero system. So it stays in one place, and you're not sending out old onboarding forms to get somebody to fill out, and then somebody is receiving them by email and opening it and reading it, and you're, hey, like that's the old way to do it.
Yeah, and it's not a secure way. And yet at some point someone's using an outdated form and they've not got the right information to go back to the employee, which feels horrible. And when it's so critical to attract and retain talent at the moment, having something that's impressive, and I think that's the other term for this, is we had traditional payroll and HR systems. Now you've got an employee experience platform. That's what I'm seeing now. And there's a few out there, of which I always think of Employment Hero as one of those, where it's as you're being onboarded into the firm, you already are getting the feel of the culture through going through the platform and the tailored approach and the way they've done that. And I think that's a critical part now in any business of making a statement to their employees.
Yeah, there's too many businesses where you have a great interview experience and you show up on day one, whether it's physically or digitally, and stuff just doesn't work. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Is this the same company? And I think people just expect like that there's really good tools available for them to do their work, right? And they don't want to feel like they're going back in time, like they're going backwards. If anything, the great experience is they find and use and experience a tool that they haven't used before that actually really helps them do their job, and it is much better for them. So yeah, that's where we think about it. And it actually forms part of our whole product, the thinking behind the product strategy, right? Like it's not about building more features here. It's what's the whole employment experience like, and our mission is to make employment more valuable and easier, right? So we try and come back to that with everything that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, like we're talking about employment here because that's where you're based. But the critical thing, and we talked about this earlier on some of the initial episodes, is that it's actually more about finding the right tool for you. It's a modern one. Make sure it's being invested in, developed, and make sure it's the right one for you. And the takeaway is, if you're going to find or going to transition to a payroll tool, make sure it's got some sort of HR functionality. Make sure a single source of truth. Make sure it connects into your other tools and your, as you say, one-touch data entry and data flow. And once again, Kieran, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
And that brings us to another end of the Digi-Tools in Accrual World podcast. Thank you for listening. If you do have any feedback or just insights and things we should discuss on the show, such as the conversations that people have on LinkedIn about bank feeds, then please do reach out to us. If you are interested in attending or being involved in sponsoring the next Digital Disruptor Awards event next year, please do drop us a message. We're very early on in the organising of that, so we're open to ideas, discussions, and making sure we've got a short list of those that want to join. Once again, as a reminder, one of the feedbacks we had was it was just like the early days of XeroCon, which has blown our minds, and we want to make sure we build on that and and bring, I guess, what's missing now with the gap in the market with XeroCon only being every 2 years, that we can make a joyous event for anyone that wants to attend. Please do ensure you subscribe to our newsletter and check out the pretty much weekly live digital digest every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Thank you for tuning in.
Awesome.